everybody. How's everyone doing? It's a full house tonight. This is great. I want to start off by just doing a quick run through the agenda, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about Mobile Monday for those folks who have not been with us before. But before I do that, what I really want to do is thank Microsoft BizPark for giving us this space tonight. And they've been really great over the past year. Also our sponsor, Kony Solutions, who's out there in the lobby. Go ahead and check them out. We're going to be hearing from Harold here in a moment, so stay tuned. All right. My name is Ryan Bloomer. I work with Mobile Monday. I also work at a company called OnePage. But the hashtag is mobile travel, if you want to hash some stuff out. We have Alex Donn with AT&T, Harold from CMO of Kony, Jamie Davidson, VP of Product at HotelTonight. We'll be introducing all these folks later on. Duncan's here with Rocketspace, and Derek from Getaround. All right, so what is Mobile Monday? We're a global community, so we're a nonprofit organization, and we probably have, I would say, way more than 100,000 plus members. This slide deck hasn't been updated in a little bit of time. Over 100 cities, and we saw all of them recently over in Barcelona for Mobile World Congress, and it was really awesome to see like 150 people that were doing events all over the world. And some of our previous sponsors, as you can see here, here's the, it's pretty interesting. What is your role? We ask survey questions every time you sign up with Eventbrite. And for those of you who do sign up through Meetup, it would be really awesome if you signed up through Eventbrite as well. It just makes it easier on our lives in terms of dealing with capacity. So, the three, what's that? Well, that was my fault. So next time there won't be. So the three interesting questions that I picked out was, what is your role? It seemed like there was way more marketing and sales people at this particular meetup, which is interesting, to say the least. I think most of the time we see a little bit more developers, but anyways. This was actually really interesting because iOS is beating out Android by double for this particular event. Usually it's like neck and neck. So I thought that was interesting to show. And then why are you attending? I guess everyone has a job in Silicon Valley. Because that number has gone down significantly. So some other things that we do here at Mobile Monday, we do some CXO dinners. We basically invite anyone from the C-suite executives. It's invite only, it's limited to 20 people max, and it's an analyst moderated discussion. And basically what we do is we work with different sponsors, and they come in and we help them curate a panel of people to get around and have dinner and discuss some different things. They're always pretty fun. And Artie, Merritt, and Space Monkey Mike are the guys that take care of that. They're in the back there, hiding out. So if you do see them, want to do a CXO dinner, those are the guys to get in touch with. We also do Mobile Monday Labs. This is really kind of like code on the wall type of stuff, focused on developers. Basically approximately 30 to 60 developers, so everyone in this room that's a developer we could probably get a Mobile Monday Lab like across the way. It's once a month, and we feature a company to talk about their SDK or what they're doing, platform, that kind of thing. If you're interested, let us know. If you run into Jeremiah, he's the guy with the mustache that was checking you in. He'll be able to help you out. And we're working with the AT&T Foundry and Verizon Innovation Center to host. So here's the team, a little bit more about Mobile Monday if you want to come visit us. I'm sure you already have, but mobilemonday.us, it directs you directly to our meetup. And something that we've been doing over the past few events is we've been promoting our events through Bizzabo. And essentially, Bizzabo is event networking made easy. So you can network with other people that are going to be at the event, and then you can also check out different things about the agenda and link up with sponsors as well. So if you want to go ahead and download the app today on the App Store, you can do that. And basically go to Momo SV and link up to our events and promote them out through your LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Facebook. They got all of this stuff. All right, so that's enough from me. I'm going to call up Harold Goldberg, who is the CMO of Kony Solutions. He's been a veteran in Silicon Valley for a very long time. He was previously with Zend as the CEO. He's going to tell us a little bit more about Kony Solutions. Let me get you hooked up here, Harold.
Great. Everyone hear me? Yeah, I can see from my gray hair. You don't have the gray hair demographic quite on your chart.
You left that out this time.
That's very kind of you. So for the developers in the room, I'm the suit. I don't know anything technical. For the sales and marketing guys, we can talk all night, and hopefully we will. And for everyone else, we're very happy to be here and to sponsor this event. This is our second one, right? We were here third event. So this is a great
very
community.
nice to us.
All right.
All right, you're good.
I'm good. Well,
you don't need that.
no, I don't. You gave me my own. All right. So this is kind of the 10-minute story on Kony. We could spend all day talking about Kony, but I will try and make it as quick as possible so we can get to the panel discussion. We do have a table out there, and we're happy to talk afterwards in a little more detail. So Kony's a 6-year-old company. We are headquartered in the tech capital of Florida, Orlando. We may be the largest software company in Orlando. I haven't quite made that claim yet, but I think it's probably true. And we have a big office here in San Mateo, and we are global. We have grown very rapidly. We have grown actually with the mobile industry. So we started in 2007. We have, as of literally today, 1,200 people on board. We are probably going to hire another 200 to 300, predominantly developers. We have about 550 developers, 400 service people, and then sales and marketing. And our revenues have really shot through the roof as well. We've grown, the first 2 years of the company, we just developed the platform I'm about to describe. We didn't have any customers. And then we started to talk to large business-to-consumer customers. And one of the first ones was in the travel industry, was a large airline whose name I will not mention, has yellow planes though, and orange. And, but we can't use their name, so we won't. But they've been a great customer for us, and that led to other business-to-consumer customers in the travel industry and financial services and banking. And then the last 2 years, we've been doing a lot of B2E, large enterprise customers, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So as of April 1st, we have 238 large Tier 1 customers, and just to give you a sense of who they are, they kind of fall into these verticals, so everything around utilities, field service organizations. We've done apps for field service, we've done apps for tracking, and then the B2C, Delta Airline, BlackBerry only. I need to tell you, we're moving to the other channels, but we started with BlackBerry. Marriott, which we'll talk about in a moment, is a great customer. They're the third, I believe, most active site on the Apple Store for booking revenue. When they put our system in their first mobile app, they were expecting to do about $150 million in the first year. They did $750 million in bookings with the app. We're in both the hotel side and in the transportation airline side. And so 5 of the 7 major carriers are running on Kony, and after the US Air American, we hope to get to 6 of the 7 major carriers, or I guess that would be 5 of the 6 after they merge. So very, very interesting companies doing really, really innovative things with our technology. And we built this, I'm sure there are many other frameworks and technologies out there. We really started the company going after the large high-end transaction, very robust, great set of connectors in the back end to go either through web services or through proprietary links to get the data to bring it into the app. And we looked at it from a technology point of view, but also from a business point of view. So I do have these 2 examples. Marriott is an important one. Hyatt is the other one. The third major chain that we're not in yet, but we're talking to, is the Hilton Starwood chain. And then in the airline industry, it has been very good for us. And I'm sure many of you are using our apps when you travel, and so that is gratifying. Our actually biggest deployment, though, that kind of talks to our size, is Citibank. So Citibank's, all of their apps, they're running in 38 countries, 18 different languages, multiple different devices, one code base. So the app is written once and then it is parsed out to all those different channels. Some areas for compliance reasons may have more screens or less screens, or the data may appear differently, but the underlying technology is actually just a single app that we are supporting in the multiple channels that we support. And then one of the things we'll talk about on the panel that I'll just kind of prelude, there's a number of opportunities for developers and for organizations to build B2E apps. So if you think about an airport or an airline or a hotel, there's everything that we see as a consumer, but there's even a bigger opportunity behind the scenes to do maintenance, to make sure that services are being provided at appropriate levels. There's various levels of outsourcing that occur in the hospitality industry, and everyone carries a smartphone. And so you don't have to give your even minimum wage worker a device. They already have a device. You just want to put an app that is tied to whatever service that you're providing on that particular device. So if you have someone who's cleaning rooms and you want to send them to clean a different room because the guest is checking in, or it's a VIP guest, you can text them that, or you can have a routing schedule for them to clean their rooms actually on the app. And so we'll talk a little bit about what some of the more innovative hotels are trying to do about the experience for guests, but it's something to think about. We're very fortunate. We just had, and we published it at two of our one customer, and one I can't name, but happens to be mentioned in this article, was written up as the top 10 for apps in the travel space. And so we are it's kind of the Kony inside. We're sitting behind this. This came out a couple of days ago. And we continue to see organizations get accolades for what they're able to do with our technology. So I'm going to give you the value prop in hopefully about 3 minutes. So our view is that in the next 3 years, especially with the stats, we're seeing the death of the laptop, in some ways the death of the desktop. We are seeing more and more people move to devices. In the 3 years, you really need to think about one app running absolutely everywhere. So whether you call it multi-channel or omni-channel, the concept of developing apps in a silo needs to disappear. And what organizations are doing is they've been dealing with technology, and you can see from my hair, I've actually learned how to program a mainframe, I guess is how I started in this business. I finally threw out those punch cards a few years ago. But I've seen this actually happen in my lifetime, and the only difference about what I've seen and what we're about to see, it's going to accelerate much faster. And so you had a brick and mortar, you went into that store, stores got very clever, and they said, you know what, we'll have a call center as well, and now you have 2 channels. I can buy something on the phone, or I can go into the store. And if you remember back, they had a hard time. You could buy it on the phone, but you couldn't return it to the store, and vice versa. So just that little transaction was complicated for many people. And then, in about 1996, we had this thing called the web. Whether Al Gore really invented it or not, we can discuss a little later. But the fact is, you now have 3 channels. And if you think about organizations, they would set up separate web teams, or they would take their call centers and have them build the web. And it was a disaster, really, until people started to figure out best practices. So you think of 1996 to today, we kind of know how to build a web presence. We can build e-commerce, we can merge these channels together, we can do it well. Well, now enter the last 5 years, really the introduction of the iPhone that kind of blew it away. And you have multiple devices now that have completely fractured this picture. It's not 3 channels, it is dozens and dozens of channels. You have multiple points of sales, multiple points of support. The cost to manage it gets very, very high, and the cost to scale is even higher. Because if you want to do an upgrade, or you want to fix a security patch, or you want to actually touch a piece of the software to make an improvement on the UI or on the back end, you have to do it multiple times. And so this is what organizations have done. They basically said, I'm going to start with the iPhone. It's the most popular, so we're going to build an iPhone. Or if you're in Asia, I'm going to build it on the BlackBerry. Or if I want to go after the Android, I'm going to build an Android. And before you know it, you have multiple development groups, multiple different organizations. They may or may not be talking to each other. You have feature disparity, you have version control problems, you have huge cost, and you have, most importantly, really dissatisfied customers. You have people who have one experience on their retail banking, a different experience when they call the call center, a third experience when on their Android device. They pull out their iPhone when they're sitting in front of the television watching the Masters, and they're going, how come this is different than the experience I just had? All right, so that is the problem that is out there that all of you who are developing apps will experience at some point if you haven't. I joke that our best customer is someone who's already developed their app, rolled it out, hit the wall on this, and then comes and talks to us about how I can solve this. And the way we solve this is pretty simple, but there's something else that's going on in the industry right now, and I'm sure there's a lot of web developers who are looking at mobile, is you have another major trend with HTML5 going on right now. So people are still thinking in silos. They're saying, my site's HTML4, I need to move to HTML5, and so I'm going to redesign my website. Now is a perfect opportunity to say, I'm going to design my app once, and I'm going to deploy it through all these different channels, including HTML5. And that is really a paradigm shift for many organizations that I talk to, that our management goes out and talks to. Mobility is different, multi-channel is different, and we're moving to a world where I think the reason there's probably close to 300 people here is because we all recognize there's a huge opportunity here. So here's what Kony does. We give you one platform that allows you to design the app. It's a JavaScript-based platform. You build the app, you pull up an emulator, you can design it for whatever your first app is going to be. You can design it on an iPhone, 4, 5, 6. You can then pull up a build screen and say, I also want it for Android, or I want it for Windows 8. You can pull up emulators and make the native capabilities adjust to take advantage of the native capabilities, whether it's a hybrid app, a native app, or you want it to deploy in HTML5. We do all three. You can then deploy that app and run it at scale to support the organizations I've already talked about. And then the final piece is we also have a complete management capability. So you can manage that app. You don't have to wipe away the entire device. We are also coming out with a device management capability. And the beauty of it is literally, once you have that new app out, we take care of managing all the different channels. So you have the same feature set, single code base, supporting multiple channels, and ultimately, we're saving our organizations either lots of money, or we're helping the companies that we work with make lots of money because they're building just beautiful, rich, really enticing apps. I was only given 10 minutes, so this is the 10-minute version of the 45 version presentation. Let me stop. Hopefully we'll have a chance to answer questions later. We'd love to tell you about what Kony is doing and what we're doing in some of the industries. And I will turn it back over to Ryan. And thank you so much for being here. And we're very excited to be here.
Thank you, Harold. Let's give him a hand. All right, so when I'm going to exit this shoot now. When I was thinking of the best person to moderate this panel, I went through my contact list, LinkedIn. I went through my Facebook friends, and I realized that the person that was going to be the best person to moderate this thing was Donn. I don't know if you know Alex, but he's kind of a legend in my eyes. He works over at AT&T, and this guy's a hackathon. He's probably at hackathons more than he's like at his own house. I think, how many hackathons did you do last year?
Pushing 30.
Pushing 30. So I want to give it away to Donn, who's our moderator tonight. Harold Goldberg, who you met, who's the CMO of Kony Solutions. And I want to bring up some other of the folks. Duncan Logan from Rocketspace. Derek Marcial from Getaround. Where's Jamie? Jamie Davidson from HotelTonight. And they're going to get a chance to introduce themselves. So I'll let you take it away.
All right, let's give them a big round of applause.
Woo! There's another round.
Actually, a big thanks to Ryan for setting all this stuff up, as well as the Mobile Monday team for getting this all out here in the space and everything. So why don't we start off with quick introductions, left to right.
I'm Harold Goldberg. I'm the CMO of Kony, but I guess from an introductory point of view, I've been in technology for about 28 years. I spent 14 years on the healthcare side, on both clinical and administrative systems. And then I went to go work for Remedy, and so kind of learned the help desk business and workflow business. That took me to BMC through an acquisition. And then I was the CEO, as Ryan said, of Zen Technologies. Learned a ton about the huge PHP community and what a great communities are in general, what they can do in technology. And eventually made my way to Kony. I've been at Kony for about a year.
I just realized this is like a hair product advert here. We have all 4 cases of hairstyles here. My name's Duncan Logan. L'Oreal is my, no. I'm the founder and CEO of Rocketspace. Hands up here who has heard of Rocketspace. Okay, I do this at every event. This guy be getting more. So Rocketspace is a technology accelerator. We have about 130 companies in there at the moment. To get into Rocketspace, you must be a technology company and you must be seed funded or beyond. We've had a number of companies in the travel space, Uber being notably one of them, who I think are now pretty much heading to be bigger than us as a community on their own. But prior to this, I'm from Scotland originally. I moved over here when we sold a previous company called Message Labs to Symantec. I've been here for 5 years and love it. It's a great place.
Thanks, Duncan. My name is Derek Marcial. I'm the owner of all of our consumer-facing products at Getaround. That includes our website as well as our recently relaunched iPhone app. We just launched at the end of February, and with one of the big things is that you can now rent instantly a Tesla Model S using Getaround. A little bit about Getaround: we're a peer-to-peer car-sharing company. Where owners can rent out their cars to their community and earn money while doing so. And a little bit about me: I was a software engineer for about over 10 years before focusing entirely on product. Prior to Getaround, I worked for IMVU, and I owned a lot of their monetization and retention products for their 3D chat client. Been living in the Bay Area for about 13 years, and I'm originally from Philadelphia, so I still love all of my Philadelphia sports teams.
Hey, I'm Jamie Davidson. I head up product at HotelTonight. HotelTonight, real quickly, is a best way to basically book a hotel room last minute, hence the name. It's also a yield management channel for hotels, move, sort of rented inventory. Prior to HotelTonight, I'd worn a variety of hats, started a company doing yield management for restaurants, worked at Kleiner for a little while, and then was at Google for a number of years.
All right, thank you guys. So, actually, kind of turn it out to the audience here. How many of you guys here have a startup in mind? You guys are looking to start something up. Raise your hands. And to keep those hands up, how many of you are interested in like having a mobile application? All right, that's still not quite. Okay, so where I was hoping to kind of try to drive some of the discussion was if you're looking at mobile, building a mobile application, what are some of the challenges, you'd be looking at, right? So, how many have product or like a semblance of an HTML5 app, or have looked at the options of building apps? A couple of you guys, some of you guys out there. Okay, so so if you guys could talk a tiny bit really quickly about, this is probably more towards Kony, the options that are available to developers out there, as well as just even as product managers and marketing people. What do we have to go through? If I wanted to build an app to sell T-shirts online, what do I have to do?
Yeah, so I'll give you an interesting stat that we've been at this for 6-7 years. About 70% of the problems in an app are in the design phase. So it's actually the communication between the person who's designing it and the developer. And it's really important to understand this. Like, if you're a one-person shop, it's not an issue because you're conceiving the T-shirt app and you're actually coding it. But once you get beyond one person, you introduce, I guess, human relations. And what ends up happening is that the business person or the person who's got a vision for what that app needs to be has that vision. And then when they turn it over to the developer often will not translate everything that they hear. So it's actually interesting that in the mobility space, which I think is different than the web space and certainly client server before that, the experience is everything. You only have one chance to get it right. And you have to have a really tight relationship between the design piece and the app coding piece. The coding piece is actually relatively easy. And if I had to give a piece of advice, it really is invest in that design and make sure that before you go and code anything, you've actually laid out your screens, you understand how they're going to work, and how they're going to perform, the performance level that you want of those. So I would start there. I'm sure this panel has lots of other things to say. But.
Any additional comments?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So 100% agree. It's complicated. So HotelTonight's on launched on the iPhone. Launched, I guess, maybe about 9 months ago. The iPad. It's been on Android for about a year and a half or so, and just recently launched Android tablets. Sort of four platforms, all of which need to be considered sort of very, very granularly. So the user experience varies across platforms. It's incredibly important to sort of have a design team speaking very, very frequently with developers. One thing I'd sort of echo, as well as sort of thinking about the user experience. I mean, mobile app distribution is really sort of a difficult, sort of still the Wild West, and there's no proven channels, and like Apple's closed down channels, Google's sort of opened up channels, Facebook's playing really interestingly. There's no sort of proven distribution channel aside from building a great product, and aside from sort of word of mouth. It's really difficult. So, to echo like everything they're saying is, it's all about the user experience.
I think with Getaround, we're actually a lot further behind, say, HotelTonight or some of the other companies that are out there. We've mainly focused entirely on iOS for now, because I think, for us, it was really about nailing the mobile experience and wanting to kind of figure out what really works well with our customers. We have a very sort of nuanced product that has some similarities to other sort of mainstream rental companies, but there are still some subtle differences that we wanted to learn about before we started informing other platforms that we could move into. So we've sort of split our time, obviously for due to some resource constraints. We're not a very big team. We're only a company of 25, but we've managed to just sort of invest ourselves more on our mobile web, so that if you happen to have a smartphone or an iPad, you can open up our website and it'll work responsibly for you. But I think we will be shifting towards Android towards the tail end of this year. But just again, for now, since we just relaunched our iPhone app, we're hoping to move to Android later in the year.
So speaking of platforms, how many of your Android users in? And iPhone? iOS? The rest of the room. Somebody's got to raise hands for Windows, right? Come on, you guys. Raise it up. We got to show support for Microsoft. BlackBerry too, right? I got to say that from AT&T. Right? So how many of you in the audience notice the difference between HTML mobile web versus native applications? Raise your hand. Good. So here's a hardball question for you guys, especially Kony. Talk to us about the difference of user experience, like why it's important, as well as the mobile web, and then and HTML5. Because AT&T, we push HTML5 pretty heavily. That's our cross-platform. We see the fragmentation in Android, and then the different platforms that people have to, the developers have to develop on, as well as the choices that the product managers, marketing people have to make. And we hear what the audience, what you guys, user experience is a big piece. So you guys can talk to us about that.
So if I could draw a graph, it's kind of HTML5 declines as the sophistication of the app grows. HTML5 is great, but like all silver bullets, it's actually not a silver bullet. There are some serious limitations to it, and it really does depend on the app that you want to build. So if you're building an app that has, we're here to talk about travel, so let's talk about travel. I have a customer who told us about what they're envisioning in their hotel of the future. And the hotel of the future is, I drive up to that hotel, and it knows that I'm there. So now I have a geolocation interconnection with whatever device I have, Android, Apple, doesn't matter. I walk in, they hand me a card, or it's sitting there already, and I go into my room. And in that room, so we'll just use an iPad as an example, that iPad now is basically my command and control center for everything. I can change the temperature in the room, I can turn on and turn off the TV. I want to see where the closest restaurant is, so I'm using geolocation for that. The camera is highly underutilized in many, many apps. And if you want to do sophisticated stuff with the camera, then you have to write in native, and HTML5 kind of falls down there. And then when I leave the hotel, I'm going to get a survey, I'm going to get loyalty points, and then when I leave far enough, it's going to lock that room automatically because I know I'm out of a certain area, and it's going to make that room available through an alert to the maid service to go and clean it so that the next person can come in. So the idea is you won't have multiple remotes in the room, you won't have a thermostat, you won't have any of that. You will have your own device, and you can go into any XYZ, Marriott, Hyatt, the chain that you prefer, and your control of that room is going to be there. That's a very difficult app to build in just HTML5. You can build many components of it, but if you actually want to take advantage of both the screen layout and the capabilities that an iPad has today, and more importantly, what's coming tomorrow, which we don't know about yet, you want to be able to also control the native capabilities. So it's a difficult question to answer. And now I'll just give you the commercial. All right, so that's the kind of good advice answer. The commercial is, that's why Kony exists, which is that I've got literally 500 engineers in Hyderabad who are working on making sure that regardless of the app operating system, whether it is hybrid or native, we take care of that heavy lifting. And so it's a trade-off. Obviously, we can't do everything, but we can do most of what most apps, sophisticated apps, need today. And so it also does boil down to where you are in your company's development. And if you're a 3-person shop, you don't need a tool like ours. But if you're trying to roll this out across multiple enterprises, you must have a tool like this.
I'm either at the wrong event, or I'm going to change it to more of the consumer side. But first of all, just from the Windows 8 thing, I think there's a really interesting thing there, because we have a pretty good relationship with Microsoft at Rocketspace, and there's a lot of information underneath there that people forget. Microsoft still owns the desktop. I mean, within corporates, it just has, I think it's still a 92% market share. And when Microsoft, and a lot of those people who are working on those computers get their technology from their company. And that's something really we forget about here in the Bay Area. Whenever I speak to family or friends who aren't in the Bay Area, I say, what phone are you on? They go, well, whatever the company gives me. And people who don't take advantage of it, it's a nightmare trying to get stuff. We see companies all the time trying to launch new apps, trying to get new things up into the iOS or Android platform and get noticed. It's a nightmare. I think there's real opportunities for companies to get ahead, to get out on the Windows 8 platform. It is, without a doubt, it is going to be a significant market piece for some companies to get out there. And I think people are too quick to go straight to Android and iPhone, that they forget that the rest of the world isn't living in San Francisco. And there is an opportunity there. I know, hand over.
So that actually is an excellent point, right? So I travel all around the place for hackathons. Miami, believe it or not, has a very strong, actually, to Kony's point, Miami is a fantastic developer ecosystem out there. And if you're ever looking to hire, it's a great place to hire. So talk to us a tiny bit more about the enterprise space. I'm actually kind of interested in hearing your guys' if you've seen like kind of the two startups, how your product development, if you talk to the product development for the application as you've seen it within the company, but more to your point of enterprise, right? Because that's also where I see a lot of opportunity as well. For the mobile application space, the desktop's already there, your backend's already with Microsoft, and a lot of your committed resources, your dollars have already gone towards the enterprise, and it's already there. So build us the case for Microsoft.
So the thing I'd say about the enterprise is, and it's incredibly hard for a startup to truly disrupt the market. And it's a 1 in a million shot that you're really going to come in there and do a PayPal or do something right from the start. I think the real dangerous thing is when a startup partners up with a corporate and uses that corporate as a platform to market. And at the moment, people talk about Twitter being a platform, or Facebook, or Android, iOS. There are so many other platforms out there. Every corporate should be looked at as a platform. And I can tell you, we have a constant stream of corporates coming to us saying, what is new, what is cool? They kind of come to us from two sides, fear or greed. What's going to kill us that we don't know about? Or what could we make a ton of money on that we don't know about? And as soon as we get that intersect correct, then it's fantastic. So I would say look at every corporation as a platform to market.
So it's kind of interesting with Getaround because we've been offered a number of opportunities to either partner or to get investment from big companies, and we've actually chosen the approach to stay as independent as long as we possibly can. We were founded in 2009, and the founders who came out of Singularity University wanted to disrupt the automotive industry. There's 1 billion cars that are sitting idle 22 hours a day on the road that are just being underutilized. And so, for us, it's been a really delicate path of trying to work with people who are innovative, but at the same time not stymieing our own internal innovation, which is we started working on something about 3 years ago called our Getaround Car Kit, which is an internal hardware piece that allows us to basically automate the whole, getting access to a car, unlocking it, and it's our own internal developed proprietary system that works similarly to, say the Zipcar's, own device. Thank you. So the thing is that we've managed to now control that IP. So we've patented that in 50 countries, and we're not beholden to any sort of strategic partnership that may have pigeonholed us. So we still try to stay strategic, open up potential partnerships and think about them and make sure that they're smart for us. But again, as a growing company, we really want to try and stay as independent as long as we can.
So the history of web and mobile sort of startup and application development has been one of basically finding new distribution channels, low cost, cheap distribution channels, and exploiting them. So if you had originally, or like not originally, but maybe 5-10 years ago, sort of the AdWords and SEO exploitation. You have Facebook platform coming. You have like the Android and Apple ecosystems as well. HotelTonight is very much we want to partner with all of these great platforms. We'd love to partner with Microsoft too, given that we're a small startup. We haven't built a mobile phone or a Windows mobile application yet. It's a yet, not a we're not going to. But it's a question of what platform is going to have sort of the highest ROI. And so for us, it's we launched on Apple, and the App Store has done tremendously well for us. Android's been amazing. We're clearly Android. We've just spent a long development time building a new Android tablet application, which is sort of I think probably one of the first in the travel space. Really betting on that platform and that evolution too. That said, it's sort of a question as sort of the stats still show. I think Microsoft, grateful for the space, and we look forward to seeing another platform.
Excellent. Okay, so what I was hoping to do here was the panelists did a fantastic job was to kind of paint the development issues, right? And so kind of leading up to this point. So now looking at the travel industry, I was flying just the other day, and looked up and I saw a teak CD-ROM drive hooked up to a Linux something that was like super, super old. They had to hit it a couple times to get the movies to play on the in-flight system, right? And so clearly I think there's a lot of opportunity for device upgrade, bring your own device maybe. And even social interactivity within the plane. Hey, we shuffle down, kind of just sit down. Hi. Well, he said hi, but most of the people who get on a plane, they don't talk to you. So talk to us about that kind of environment, and maybe where some of the opportunities are. And even in the pre and post, right, as well. I just hosted a hackathon with American Airlines at South by Southwest, and there was there's opportunity to gate. Earlier you mentioned even inventory, device management, luggage management. We all love that piece, right? So, please.
I think you'll be surprised how eager the airline industry in particular is to get on board with this. So I sit on the advisory board for British Airways, a small airline out of Britain, and one of the things we've been trying to persuade them to do is open up an API, which is a really kind of dangerous thing for an airline to do in some regards. But they've really embraced it. They've worked with legal and all the rest of it, and they are now opening up. I think they're the first airline that's going to open up an API and let people in there. And what they're doing at the moment is saying, you tell us what information you want. Now, I think a lot of people for flying, that once you're on the plane, that's the easy part. You know, I want airports to open up an API. I want luggage. You know, if UPS can track it, why the hell can't an airport? There's so many things where the airline industry has fallen behind. So I can tell you, you know, American Airlines, British Airways, a number of others, they're keen to innovate. They're keen to work with startups and get going there. So I think there's another platform, another opportunity.
So I'm going to take it slightly differently. Think single apps. So everything that you experience when you fly or when you look around. So an example is you see these pilots with these huge flight bags, right? So they're carrying, you know, 10, 15 pounds of flight material that all fits on an iPad or a mobile device. And there are some definite issues that you need to work through. Sometimes paper is just better, especially if you lose power. But for 99% of one of the things the airline industry is extremely good at, and is now teaching other industries, is the checklist. They really invented the checklist. The reason we have such high safety standards in the United States is because they've really figured out how to automate, well, how to regimentize this, but it's all paper. And you see these guys coming in with clipboards, and you know they come over the overhead and say, you know, the maintenance guy's here, but we've got to finish the paperwork before we can push back. Or we have to wait for something to be signed off in the luggage. So there's literally hundreds of discrete apps that airlines can and should build that would both make them more efficient. Your point about API is absolutely correct. They will open them up on the back end. So for employees to be able to have access to the key information they need instead of a clipboard. But airlines are looking for ideas as well. They're looking for ways to improve the experience.
Yeah, I think you know, for us, what we've learned is that most travel nowadays is happening on the go. So in terms of planning, so say for example, you booked a trip to Chicago, you may not necessarily figure out where you're going to stay or what car you're going to drive until you get there. Because nowadays it's so easy for you to be able to just look at a city and say, okay, well, what are my rental options, or where are my hotel options, and just and then making that decision once you get there. And kind of speaking to the API side, we've been this past CES was pretty important for a company like Getaround, because big companies like Ford and GM really touted their open developer platform. And as a side note, we ended up integrating closely with Tesla's unofficial API, and we were able to integrate our backend to Tesla so that you can really kind of play up the whole connected car aspect. And that's been a huge benefit for us, because when you're trying to make it so that people are interested in car sharing rather than, say, purchasing a car, then that simplicity and access and immediacy is sort of a need that we for our products we have to fulfill. And so kind of combining both the desire to have a car immediately, the simplicity of using an iPhone app to then go ahead and walk up to that car and then drive away with it because you just unlocked it is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know this. You came to a mobile meetup. Like the whole premise of the remote control for your life that Matt Kohler, coined, like it's going to happen. And it's a question of sort of like there's connected devices. There's real-time inventory availability. There's constant connectivity for a user, and like everyone, it's sort of the Uberification of the world, so to speak. Is everything's available at a touch, everything's available at a price, and you can sort of it should be just a strictly more efficient marketplace. Because I don't know, it's an exciting, brave new world.
I'll tell you one of my favorite airline apps. Who here has used Strava? Strava for running, Strava for bicycling. Try Strava on a plane. Fantastic. Nobody here uses Strava. It's the thing, it records how fast you're running. Try that going down the road. Awesome.
As you're running 550 miles an hour.
How about that?
Well, speaking of these little devices, I actually have the Jawbone. Apparently AT&T wants us to be healthier, so which is kind of cool. So talk to us a bit about maybe the intersection between some of these devices.
So, you know, I am going to date myself. I was at a conference in 1996. They were designing the hospital of the future. I know it's not travel, but if you think about it, a hospital and a hotel, they're not too far different. In fact, the service is often better in a hotel than in a hospital. And one of the speakers that really struck me back then, so remember, 1996, the internet was just started happening, was wearable computing. Now, if you think about where we've come in the last 15 years, we're there. And with Google Glass and watches that are going to basically become as powerful or sophisticated as what we're wearing on our belts or carrying in our pocket, we're not too far away from brain implants and other devices that we can graft onto our skin. So that there is a level of interconnectivity that is somewhat science fiction and somewhat scary, but is going to happen. Now, whether that happens or not in a way that you feel is invasive or not, definitely wearable computing and providing information in context with a super powerful experience in the time that I need it it's gonna persist. We're gonna see that, whether it's happening in our cars, whether it's gonna happen with something that we're carrying, whether we're in a building, whether it's our fridge talking to us saying you shouldn't be eating that because it's got too many calories, whatever the actual device is. The thing that we need to think about as developers and people in the mobility industry is how do you plan for that? Because the last thing you want to do is develop it once and then redevelop it again and then redevelop it again. If there's anything we've learned in technology, we built the cake and then we put on 40 layers of icing because we can't quite tell where it's going to keep going. I joke that software never dies, it just gets another interface put on top of it. And sure enough, there is software out there that's 30, 40, 50 years old that is still running our lives. But we have an opportunity to learn and kind of look into the future and say, okay, wearable computing, let me think about that when I'm actually developing my app. It works great on this format, but how will it look on a watch? How will it look on a heads-down display, whether it be in my glasses or whether it be in my car or in my boat or whatever vehicle I'm thinking about, or on my bicycle with a rear view mirror. So I would say ponder that a little bit. It is going to happen, it's already happening, and it's going to accelerate how quickly it happens.
Comments? And then in terms of APIs, where, you guys mentioned APIs earlier, so for the travel industry, I'm sure that actually becomes very interesting, right? So if you knew if I happened to book a trip to Arizona, you're tracking my phone, you happen to know I got to the gate in Arizona, I got out, and then I have no car, I have no hotel for tonight. Come on, hotel tonight, right? No hotel for tonight. Come on, guys. Hard crowd, man. All right, so would that be of interest, right? We're like,
Sure, so absolutely. I mean, it's a question of sort of contextually relevance, though. So it's not spammy. The answer is not, prompting. I mean, I think we've seen interesting forays into the space. So Highlight's a really interesting social app that pings you when your friends are around you. Contextual relevance. I mean, sort of the dream world where you book a hotel, you arrive, you don't even have to check in. You just go straight to your room, and the room opens with your iPhone is amazing, and it's contextually relevant, understands where you are in your context. That is probably a little bit farther away maybe than I don't know. I think we'll see. I hope it gets better. I think the hard part's spam. And how do I know that you're in Austin but you don't have a hotel room? And I don't want to prompt you when you do. I don't want to be annoying about it. So it's a question of basically how do you tailor the user experience such that it's adding value and not detracting from users.
It's actually going to give you a plug. I think that's the ultimate thing of something like Getaround, is that once you know who's driving the car, then let anyone drive the car. Once you have that true trackability, whether it's cars or yachts or, there's so much hardware sitting around being underutilized, that we don't need to own it. This sharing community, this collaborative consumption is a fantastic thing for efficiency in the world. And I think the sooner we can truly tie a mobile device to the individual and know that it is 100% that individual, then that is your reputation. And how you behave anywhere whether it's driving someone else's car, whether it's in a taxi, whether it's in a hotel room, then your clout score or your professionalism score really starts to become something.
Anybody want to build Skynet? Okay, so actually, well, let's keep continuing down. This is.
Can I just raise one other, just a point, is we also are thinking about people interacting with devices, but especially in travel, and it goes to the car and any other thing, devices talking to devices. There's a ton of information and apps that can be developed, taking information through, hopefully open APIs, but even if you can just make it available on a web service from other devices so that you can build that contextual environment. And there's many people who've written around about the Internet of Things. That is also literally around the corner. In some industries, I mean, we do some work in oil and gas. You think about an oil rig out there, there are thousands and thousands of sensors. There's no one sitting out there in that oil rig. And they've written all sorts of apps so that someone sitting here can actually see what is going on, monitoring it, sending people out, and then correlating with the weather, right? So I'm not going to send someone out if it's a storm, if there's a problem, what are the fail-safes? Well, that's an industrial example that is going on today, right now. But we're going to start seeing examples of that in our consumer life. I'm coming home. Okay, turn the heat on. I've got a Nest thermostat in my house. I set it. Right now, this feature is not in Nest yet, but it's a good feature. If it knows that I'm 35, 40 minutes away and I'm heading home because my car GPS is talking to my Nest, then it can automatically turn on the heat.
Excellent. Yeah, and actually speaking of these kind of, so all these wearable devices, mobile to device to device, network devices, right? So cellular enabled homes, they can drive up to your home, you obviously know everything turns on, maybe like if you're at the airport, you hit the button, and then your home turns on and starts to heat up in case you live in Minnesota, it's freezing, right? Talk to us about these markets. Like, where do you see some investment opportunities? Where do you see, like, and especially for like you two at the end here, what would the applications that your companies maybe be interested in working with that would kind of expand your business and your marketplace?
So I think that the natural evolution of basically constant connectivity is basically with both for devices and for consumers is basically higher utilization and basically fair market pricing for these assets that are basically underused currently. So if a rental car normally costs $200 but it's not getting used, maybe today actually a price of $100 is actually the right price. I think you're going to see this for literally everything. Any fixed asset that could be at 100% utilization, that's probably the optimal point. Where it's basically like really high fixed cost, low variable cost. Any market like that should be disrupted, and it will eventually become something where variable pricing based on demand and context of a user. So it's all about demand prediction. I think it's all about sort of building and facilitating these connected devices so that you can actually get the real-time access to the inventory and understand what the usage is going to be like. So I mean, look like the other big trend is like data science, but look to the people that are predicting demand, predicting prices, understanding really what utilization should be for these things, and that's I think there's tons of markets for ripe for disruption there.
Yeah, I think with Getaround, we actually grew pretty rapidly. In about 18 months, we actually grew to where we had more listed cars than Zipcar, and it was pretty amazing to see that. But the challenge is that not all of these cars were actually getting utilized in a very effective way. Some of them, may have been, taking business from another person who lived a couple blocks away because they saw us and were excited about it. And so we had to be pretty smart about figuring out, what kind of cars we could place in a specific neighborhood or even an area. So we actually had to go hyper local to just see what the appetite may be almost going neighborhood by neighborhood as to what kind of people live in that area, what type of businesses are there, what the parking situation is like. And for us, it's being able to figure out that kind of demand that Jamie alluded to, that would be perfect for the right blend of cars that we are currently on our system. And keep in mind, any owner can put their vehicle on, and if they live in, say, the outer Richmond, they're going to do quite well because there's not a lot of penetration of other cars sharing services out in the Richmond, but because he's one car and that's surrounded by a bunch of families, he's going to dominate that one particular area and make a pretty good money. And so, for us, it's really, again, trying to understand that hyper-local aspect. I think one of the things that we're still trying to figure out is how much do we actually surface on our mobile app. So do we broadcast right away that a new car just showed up right around the corner from you? Again, the balance between spam versus something helpful it needs to be figured out. And so I think that's kind of where we're thinking about it.
Well, yeah, just one thing. I think there is a company who's really kind of shifted mindset in this, and that is Uber. And when Uber first came out, people said it's indirect hailing, it's bringing about efficiency. I think Uber is all about time. It's just it's not my drug of choice. I hate to think how much I spend on it every month. But the biggest thing for me, there's two big things about Uber, and I think it plays into so many different apps. One is it's an enormous time saver. And time's the only thing I can't create. It's the only thing I can't get back. Everything else I can work on, but time I will never get back. And the second thing is something I didn't expect, but it's the auto payment thing. I get out the car and walk away, and I don't even think about it. And that is so powerful. I met some guys at South by Southwest who are doing that for bar tabs, and I just thought that is it's so smart, because I don't feel like, well, what if the guy rips me off? Or what if this? I can see it all there. I know who they are, they know who I am. And I just think the more things where it's kind of that walk away, someone will come up with a term if they haven't already, that walk away experience, paid for walk away or whatever, is something really powerful. And I think there's a huge opportunity for that simplicity to come into other apps.
I cannot agree more. That's an excellent point there. Because I travel quite a bit, and that's the primary reason why I use HotelTonight. It's a couple clicks, draw a little H, I got my hotel, I know exactly where I need to go, and boom, I'm there. And I don't need to think twice. It charges my credit card, I'm done. Same thing with Uber. And it takes the pain out of, to be honest, I actually hate negotiating, even though I'm like Asian. I should like negotiating, right? Going to China actually stresses me out. I'm like, I don't really want to, how much am I paying him, right?
Can I ask you a question? Do you get nervous about what you're going to pay? I guess for in the Uber. Is there ever any friction for you on that?
It's more the stress of having to negotiate the deal. So if I don't have to negotiate, then that makes it so much easier. I can focus on my what drives revenue for me. And also what I enjoy too. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to spend time negotiating. So to turn it out to you guys out in the audience, are there any questions?
Has anyone seen a model around premium and whale adoption on enterprise, specifically in mobile? Is there numbers of people who've seen it? Ease of use or just more on point like in games? Is there any data around?
A little hard to hear.
Can you repeat that?
The question was freemium versus other monetization models in travel.
Travel?
For whales? Yeah, what are some of the numbers you guys have seen for in travel applications?
I haven't seen anything, but I think it's mostly travel, mostly transactional for travel. I don't know of anyone. Yeah, right.
Well, one thing I would say is that certainly in the hotel customers that we have, they are definitely thinking about how do you build premium channels to their customers, because it's all about brand loyalty. And similar to your example, kind of the pay and walk away, the last thing that someone who's going to spend a lot of money or has a lot of loyalty with an organization is I don't want to be nickel and dime to death. I don't want to have to keep looking at the transaction. So having a seamless relationship where you have to give them a fair bit of information, including all your billing information, but you can trust them, and it really is a trust with those customers that I'm going to accurately bill you for what you're going to use, and I'm going to make it as simple as possible. So I definitely know the brands are thinking about this and where they stratify it. I'll give you one example that is, so the Chase Sapphire card, it's actually from my call center days, but it applies as well. They were the first credit card that says, you can call, and on the first ring, you're going to get an agent. Now, you pay for that privilege, you pay whatever their membership fee is, $350, but they took the IVR out, they took everything out because they said our high net worth customers don't want to have to wait online. And so that simple approach, and they were petrified. I remember when they cut it over, they didn't know how to staff it, they didn't know how many calls they were going to get. But their affinity with those customers went way up. They could charge them whatever they wanted to. It could be the most expensive credit card, but the fact I didn't have to wait online, it's the time thing. You're going to save me, I'm going to get to an agent immediately. So any app that does that will have value.
Look at how much money people are paying every year to get on a plane 5 minutes before anyone else. Now, admittedly, it's for a better seat, but it's incredible.
That's what's keeping the airlines profitable. That and baggage fees.
All right, you got another
I
question
want to get
here?
my bag on early.
Everyone get your bags off early.
Hi, my question is about technical debt, and I have a very short story. It's a little bit more of a technical question than you have. So I was at the Internet of Things Summit last week where General Electric was talking, and they were talking about how they just completed their audit of all the massive amounts of systems they have. They have this many locomotives, and this many jet engines, and all this hardware. And some of the audience asked, what software are you running? And the guy says, oh, we have COBOL, and we've got STATA, and Fortran, and all these ancient systems. And so, you guys are relatively new, Kony's a little bit older. How do you avoid this sort of technical debt being built over time? I'd be interested in your comments on that as well, because you guys certainly have a big part. Thank you.
Yeah, so our approach is that the industry over time does build APIs. They have to, because you're not going to throw out that COBOL program. A little back from my BMC days, there's something like 70% of the business logic in the world still runs on mainframes, and that's why there's 14,000 mainframes, and they sell 150 a year, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry maintaining them. But the way Kony has actually designed our platform is twofold. Anything that can be served up as a web service, we can consume. And one of the points I was going to make earlier, one of the great things about mobile apps is I call it integration on the device. IT has spent years trying to integrate stuff at the back end, but you don't have to do that. If you've got a web service and I can pull up one piece of information, I have another web service and I can pull up contextual information, and I can build my app so the server information is actually happening at the server level, I don't care that it's written in COBOL. As long as you can serve it up to me in service. So that's really how we've approached it. Now there are some things, like we have a proprietary interface to Siebel, so we front-end CRM. It's not the easiest system to work with. But Siebel, if you want to work with sales organization, we have an API for Salesforce, we have an API for PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft may not be the success factors of today, but they're still running 60-70% of the HR systems around the world. And so they're not going to make any investment there, so you have to make a technical decision. Is it worth it for me to write hard-coded into a legacy system because nothing's going to change about it? Or is someone else going to write a web service, either in the community or in open source, that we can take advantage of technically? So that's the approach that we've taken. And it's worked very, very well. Screen scraping. Yes, we have a lot of customers who can't get their IT organization to do what they need them to do, and so they still scrape screens. And they get great information. They have some of the best apps out there are screen scraped from their web applications.
Can we move on to the next question really quick? Sorry.
Yeah, hello, my name is David Macias, and I'm with a startup called GigSky. And I'd like to know what your thoughts might be about the problem of international roaming. So as a travel event here, 80% of people that cross the border turn off their devices. So we've got our own solution and cut at that, but I'd like to know what kinds of things that you guys are aware of that are out there that can solve that big problem. Again, it's GigSky.
I can tell you Americans get screwed.
Yeah.
Because
My bill was expensive on Barcelona.
Yeah.
You don't want to see it.
coming from Europe, I don't know, they've just got roaming so much better sorted out. You can prepay it and it doesn't come back and bite you and shock you and so forth. But here, I mean, it's a network problem. It's just far too out of whack on what it is. But I will say something else on a little bit of confidence that it will change is we're just about to move to a new building and we decided we're going to put in gigabit connections. And I thought, this is great, gigabit, send a bus then. So we put in a 3 gigabit connection. It's costing us a couple of $1,000s a month. And I just read that Tokyo is getting gigabit connections for $51 a month to the home. And I'm like, wow. It was only 3 weeks ago we were talking about 3 gigabit connection. Let's sign off on it. And now they're getting it at home. So the pace at which technology is moving internationally, is great. And if AT&T and others don't catch up, people will work their way around it. So.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say though is it's definitely true, and more open platforms like Android, for example, we're launching in Europe now, and we've seen better adoption with Android relative to that. It's more open, and we have some US consumers.
Yeah, my question has to do more around just data access when you cross the border, and so that hunt for the SIMs that you have to go through every single country. There's a number of different companies out there that are trying to solve that problem, and it's the domestic market for travel will domestic travel, right? But once you talk about international travel, that's a different market. So the question was, are there any solutions or anything like that that you guys are familiar with?
All right. I think the panel will probably answer that one. Let's.
Sure.
Okay, hi, I'm in Asia, sorry, and just wanted to know your opinion on gamification.
On gamification in the travel industry. If you had any examples, anything that's coming out.
Question like gamification of the travel industry.
So I think the classic example is hotel loyalty or airline miles is already basically like it really is gamification sort of in its purest form. I think that loyalty is incredibly important, so reward programs will continue to exist and be really important. Sort of to the earlier question too about sort of the freemium model, I think it's about exposing different points on the demand curve and actually having fair prices for each sort of basically customer segment, and I think that's sort of what gamification is too. It's what sort of Zynga did, got rid of the deadweight loss from the EA games $50 price, and instead like you pay $2 or 20 cents or something like that, and you still play. So I think it has a place. I think it's important, but I think it's a little bit different than sort of content or media.
I will, I'm going to flip it around and say that there are people looking at gamification for employees. So the travel industry employs tens of thousands of people, and you want to keep these people motivated. And so you think about flight attendants, they bid on shifts. And they bid on shifts based on route and seniority and what their union has to say. Well, you can also do it based on customer service points. So how many customers have actually said, this was a great flight attendant, and as their point system goes up, they can bid on better routes. So there are companies that are definitely playing with gamification that way. And then for kids like playing games. And so I say this seriously, that a lot of hotel chains are looking like, how do I put games to make them game friendly? And it won't be, matter of time, you'll have pets. You'll have, there's a whole cable channel just devoted to keeping your pet happy. So while you're out enjoying the resort, your pet's in the room actually watching television on a hotel television with soothing music to keep your pet from climbing the wall.
All right, somebody's got to do that application there. It's like, start a business around that. I'm a mobile pet watching anywhere. Right?
Mobile pet watching.
All right, guys, we're up on the hour here. Any final questions? You guys want to keep this going? Keep it going? End it. Move it outside. What do you guys want to do? Keep it going? Questions? You have a question? Any other? I'm actually kind of, back in the back. Here, let me,
Yeah, my question is, a lot of the technologies we've been talking about tonight are very much first world technologies, and for a hospitality, large international brand, or for an airline, an addressable consumer audience or an addressable consumer base, that first world best case scenario is one in half of the people can actually do what you're talking about, and they have a whole massive universe of consumers that need to address. So what are some of the other strategies and important things that we need to be talking about outside of first world technology focused solutions?
So I'll just give you a quick answer. So the Citibank app that I talked about, it's in 38 countries. They're not all first world countries. It's a lot of SMS and texting. Many countries, take Vietnam as an example, there is no landline. They basically completely skipped, went completely to a cellular network. And one of the things that we do in our platform, because we service that market, is we push stuff out through SMS and through texting. It does create challenges when you're designing an app. But the other, just as you said about Tokyo, the third world is not as third world as you think it is. So there are smartphones and low-cost phones are penetrating that market very quickly. There's 2 billion devices are going to be sold in this next year. They're not going to be sold in the United States. We have all the devices we need. I shouldn't say that. There will be more devices. But those devices are going to be sold in the traditional BRIC countries, India, China has 350 million people in the middle class. There's another 750 million to go.
But where does the price of data come into that, though? Because in a lot of these territories and a lot of these countries, the price of data is too expensive to actually address the consumer.
I think you brought up a really good point. I think there's a couple of things. First of all, the texting is a real solution. There are now women. Is it not on?
Could be dead. That one works.
Yeah, there's now women in a lot of developing countries managing to earn a full day's wage just by texting apps. The other thing I think is, I know Coca-Cola started putting Wi-Fi hotspots in vending machines around in the third world. I think that's a really smart move. There's other companies looking at the same of that. The only other thing from a previous question around gamification of travel, I can tell you from an airline I'm involved in that they are moving away from the kind of bronze, silver, gold mentality of what category of airline travel you are, and looking more at a sort of clout score for travel, which personalizes everything, and I think then brings around the gamification of how you travel. Thanks.
So a question back here.
Especially in travel, how has the convergence funnel varied on different platforms, if it has varied at all between iPhones, iPads, Android phones, and Android tablets, like from search to book or something like that?
So for Getaround, we're currently only on iOS as well as on mobile web. What we're seeing right now is about since we've relaunched, 1 in 3 transactions in terms of the checkout is happening on our iPhone device, on our iPhone app. Hoping to obviously make that a little bit more significant in the very near future, but it's accounted for a lot of traction since we first relaunched the app. Prior to that, we weren't really seeing as much traction in using our iPhone app. We only had 2.5 stars and it wasn't very good. We're at 4 stars now, by the way, which is great. A lot better. Anyway, so like I said, as we innovate on the app and as it starts to pick up more traction and we go into more markets, we'll start to see a lot more of our volume go through the iPhone. But for us today, it's still majority on our website.
Conversion doesn't vary very much for us across platform, but the platforms are variable sizes. So iOS is still much bigger for us.
If you leave the United States, the picture changes. So Android is definitely more popular. It's also a little bit socioeconomic. So Android is more popular, lower economic stratus, iPhone higher economic stratus. Don't discount the BlackBerry. There's still lots of applications, whether they be in the government space, certain countries, Asia is still a lot of BlackBerry, and then you were making the point about Windows 8. I think it really is the sleeper. So, they may not have gotten it right with Surface, in the first release of it. This is Microsoft's, mode of operations. We sit here in Microsoft's building, which is, version 1 is the alpha. Version 2 and version 3, they'll get it right. And the point about the desktop and interconnectivity means that you can't write them off. So I'm not sure we'll see a convergence. I think we'll continue to see chaos in devices and operating systems. That's just the nature of the industry. But we exist, other companies exist to be able to deal with that so that you can have a unified experience across all the different devices.
All right, here's another question on the side.
The question is mainly about the fact that people assume the markets here are the same as international. Actually, just as more a question, but it's more off the point.
Question.
The reality is most people...
Question, not a statement. Question, not a statement, please.
Okay. Where do you see the effect that most parts of the world actually do purchase on phones, and they were messing with retail, and banks are tied in there, it's money transfer. How does that change the delta, what we expect here? Some of the things you mentioned are actually not the case in Africa and Asia.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm going to answer the question as you're posing it. I think it is very regional, and one of the things that I'll give you an example. You know, there's a number of examples in developing countries, both in Africa and Southern Asia, where texting, the ability to text on a phone to get current market prices has allowed growers to trade coffee beans, trade tea, whatever it is that they're growing, without dealing with all the different middle people that have been ripping them off for years. So is that an app that's going to come to the United States? I doubt it. I think we have the Chicago Board of Trade and commodity markets. We've solved that problem in a different way. But these apps, I think, are going to be very, very local. The other one that kind of leaps to mind is there's a lot of off-label prescriptions that are sold into the third world countries. I was talking earlier about using a camera. People don't always know the medicine they're taking, but if they have the ability to actually take a photograph or look something up to see if the drug that they've been given by the local clinic is accurate and prevents a lot of sickness, and certainly prevents a lot of interdiction, which is a huge problem in a first world country, in our country, as well as in third world countries. And these are mobile apps that need to be tailored to the usage of those particular markets. And yeah, we'll keep learning.
I think what was interesting, one of the slowest adopters of the internet in Europe was France. And it's because they're French.
No, they had television.
But we had television in
But they had the internet on the television.
Before the internet came around, France had a thing called Minitel, which is a system for communicating on the side of your phone and up and down, and it prevented the fast adoption of the internet. I think what a lot of these developing nations have the advantage of, they will never go to the internet. They're going straight to mobile, and they're never going to put in the hardwired internet as we know it. And I think they will become huge opportunities in the future. And the sooner they get their own development criteria and we see these technology clusters form, I think they'll teach us a lot of things.
All right.
Do one more question?
Yeah, I was one more question.
Sure. Yeah, so it's still really hard to feel like a local when you're traveling. So I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on what you feel is missing from that space, and what companies and products you're most excited about in that space.
Sure. So I think getting authenticity is something everyone looks for when they're traveling. And you know, hotels, you have a concierge, but there is the aspect of actually getting to the local. So I think at HotelTonight we very much view it as we need to help broad and beyond the transaction, actually help with the exploration around the hotel, and like where's the bar you should go to after you check in, or what's the restaurant across the street, sort of a thing. I think a couple companies have done a great job. Airbnb has done a really great job. Yeah, I don't know.
I think for us, because most of all the vehicles, actually not most, all of the vehicles on Getaround are owner operated, and so if you were to fly to Chicago or Austin, you're actually going to meet the owner of the car, and get to know them. And so one of the other aspects of local for us is that if you are sharing a car or renting a car from somebody at these destinations, it's actually funding the local economy to that area, because that person lives there, and you're paying for their vehicle, and so it's very local from that point of view. But yeah, I echo Jamie's sentiment in that regard. But Airbnb is really killing it in my opinion as far as the local experience.
I think customer feedback is hugely valuable. Every time you land in an airport and you're trying to get into town, you're wondering, do I take the train? Do I take a car? What am I going to get ripped off? And the more airports and travel sites allow legitimate customer feedback onto it, then I think it makes everyone's life. I think there's a big opportunity there, but it does make everyone's life easier.
No, I was just going to say that I think just Facebook, social networking in general, and putting stuff in context. I had a personal experience. I was traveling in Israel about 2 months ago. I went on Facebook to actually look up a restaurant that we were planning to go to, and I saw that a friend of mine from Iowa City was also in the country. And we had dinner that night. I haven't seen this person in 20 years, but we're friends on Facebook, and it had a mobile device. It was, by the way, costing me thousands of dollars because I was using roaming charges, but I would check in for 10 minutes a day, and in that 10 minutes was able to see that she was there. So I think social networking and bringing that to the context of where you're at, there's lots of opportunity. I need to keep talking, checking my mobile app to see if my car is charged also, in real time.
Yeah, I gotta say,
20% to go.
I love that. I use the parking app all the time. It's for paying the meters, feeding the meters, right? Other questions in the audience?
I got one.
All right.
Hi. So this one's for my boss. Duncan's my boss. I'm a Rocketspace. So I'm gonna put him on the spot a little bit. Back to travel, right? So what do you guys, Duncan and the rest of the panel, what do you guys think of the areas that are ripe for disruption for startups that in the audience that would should be solving, or should be thinking about maybe not now, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, or maybe 20 years. Maybe we won't get that far. Thank you.
Jeez. I was your boss. I mean, I'm super excited about wearable devices and the true transformation of there's so many things that are just ridiculous that when you think this is so painful, why do I do it time and time again? When I see founders who solve pains for themselves, I think that's a really smart founder, and more often than not, they go on to be really successful, however small that pain is. And I just think there's so many things with mobile devices we haven't got to yet. I still carry a wallet, I still carry keys to open my house, to open my car, I can still lose, there's just so many things, wearable devices, whether it's a band which can unlock doors or, start my car or whatever, there's just a huge amount of consolidation in the space. And I think, if you're looking more than just a year or two out, I think it's getting to those sort of consolidation moments, which would be cool.
I'm just going to, one word, testing. We are building all these apps, but like all the industries and technologies that went before us, someone who does testing really, really well in this industry is going to make a difference.
Can you guys talk more? Actually, I love that point there because I've spoken to a number of developers that actually not even developers, runners. Like the runners, they've actually expressed interest in a watch. You guys have seen those Pebble, those watches, right? It'd be great if you could have your little Starbucks app, right? That runs on your watch, and then you can have Starbucks check you in, and because that's what you do. You kind of go running, you're like, hey, let's meet at Starbucks, and then we'll run from there. Maybe if you're running in Seattle, you freeze halfway to death, go back to Starbucks, and then you warm up with a nice hot cup of coffee. Maybe are there opportunities there with different types of devices and interactive modes and pairing?
Once you know it's your device,
It doesn't matter what the device is. Once you can certify that it's your device, that crime thing, then going and paying for Starbucks with your running watch, or getting a ferry back from Tiburon with your running watch, or whatever. I just don't. It's just crazy that we carry money when I pay for a taxi using my phone. I pay for lunch using my credit card. I just think that's ridiculous.
So Apple hasn't formally said, but there's a lot of rumors that the next version of the iPhone is going to have a fingerprint scanner on it. Is that enough of identity for you to be able to use your phone that way?
for a transaction up to $200. I wouldn't buy a car.
You wouldn't buy a car with a fingerprint?
All right, question in the back here.
Unless the car's under $200.
I can rent one.
What's your take on augmented reality in airlines and hotels especially? And is it ready for prime time today?
So I'm not an expert in this. We certainly have customers who are starting to play with it, and they're asking about it in the airline industry. They're not talking about what they want to do with it, but being able to, you land, what's the experience going to be like in the airport? So instead of pulling out a two-dimensional magazine at the back, you can actually see what it's going to be like, where I'm going to pick up my transportation. You think about going to a place you've never been before, doing a lot of stuff in 3D or showing little videos that are tied into the context of where you're going to be is going to be more important. So I know companies are playing with that. I haven't seen a good example yet in the airline, in the travel space.
All right, Jamie, Derek, Duncan, Harold, let's give a big round of applause. Thank you very much for coming out. We'll see you guys out in the lobby. If you have any questions, I'm sure these guys will be very happy to answer your questions.